And now we are going into a consumer product, FUL, which is just unbelievable, and I'd love to try it one day. Olaf, I won't take away your spark, so why don't you go ahead and introduce FUL for us?
All right, thank you very much. Olaf Gruß from General Mills. It's my pleasure to introduce FUL Foods. Just a little bit of background. We met Julia and her team through our partnership with Mass Challenge, the accelerator in Lausanne, Switzerland. And what I found specifically intriguing about FUL Foods is that as they use microalgae as a substrate, they developed a technology that, for example, mitigates the taste, but also stabilizes the color, which is quite amazing, if you ask me. Plus, another point was as carbon neutrality really becomes a table stake, more or less, for all companies. FUL Foods with their approach certainly identified a great way to contribute, as microalgae are extremely efficient in capturing CO2. So that's just the intro about FUL Foods. So I hand it over to the team at FUL Foods.
Thanks, Olaf.
Thanks so much, Olaf, and thanks, Nick, for having us. So we're the FUL Foods team, and we'll share about a 10-minute pitch and then open it up for questions. So I want you to imagine a company that could transform emissions into an effective, scalable means to help nourish our planet. I'm talking about a solution that doesn't just do less harm, but actively addresses critical issues around climate. So reducing greenhouse gases, freeing up arable land to restore biodiversity, eliminating the need for intensive use of precious resources like fresh water. And it was really this shared vision that brought us together to pursue what we all considered to be the greatest economic opportunity and perhaps the greatest challenge in the history of humanity, which is getting to net zero emissions. So we looked to the superhero of the natural world as the core of our solution, as Olaf mentioned, microalgae, which, for those of you who don't know, is a tiny but powerful organism that actually helped give rise to life on Earth billions of years ago by converting the CO2 swirling around in the atmosphere into oxygen and nutrient and protein dense food. And to this day, microalgae still serve as a critical life source on this planet by producing over half the oxygen we breathe. So as a food, microalgae can be grown in the desert or vertically in cities, and they require very limited natural resources like fresh water, especially when you compare to other sources of nourishment. Plus, they can capture up to 400 times the amount of CO2 trees can. And from a health perspective, microalgae are among the most nutrient-dense substances on Earth. So they're packed with a complete protein, vitamins, antioxidants, minerals. In fact, when we were first doing research, we saw that NGOs have been using microalgae to address malnutrition in the developing world. So you might be wondering, as we were, why aren't we consuming more of this miraculous superfood? Clearly, we haven't tapped into microalgae's potential as a sustainable food source. Because the problem preventing microalgae from scaling is really twofold. So one is its product properties, including most notably an unpleasant smell, taste, and high cost. So in other words, how do you make microalgae appealing and affordable for consumers? And two, we saw there was a real lack of market positioning and branding. So in other words, how do you integrate this powerful substance into foods people are actually going to buy? So enter our solution. A solution that we think better positions microalgae to take advantage of the significant opportunity presented by what we're all experiencing as this new generation of conscious consumers who first and foremost see products that of course taste good, are convenient and affordable, but we see that they're increasingly prioritizing products that are healthy and have low environmental impact.
So to solve for microalgae issues around taste and price, we've developed a proprietary biorefinery process to transform microalgae into multiple valuable fractions. Just as in the oil and gas world, where immense value is created by refining crude oil into many valuable fractions like gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, so too do we refine microalgae into multiple fractions to create more value from its separate parts than its whole. We separate it in protein, fatty acids, antioxidants, and we have developed our first extract, which we will focus on mostly today. But it's worth noting that we have started already the development for our second product from the remaining microalgae biomass. We have already filed a patent covering the development of our first product, a protein and nutrient-rich ingredient. This ingredient has been a revolution, making major strides in the world of microalgae, eliminating issues around taste, stability, and solubility. And I can't emphasize enough what a big deal this is, given that microalgae has developed a reputation among researchers and product developers for being a very tricky substance to work with. And we call this nutrient-rich ingredient FUL, a trademark superfood for the climate change generation that consumers will come to associate with tasting good, making them feel good, and doing good for the planet. FUL will be in a range of products, but we are starting by introducing it through a branded functional beverage, a superfood tonic, essentially a marketing strategy that taps into an exciting market opportunity. We are starting with one of the biggest markets, the non-alcoholic market, to capitalize on the exciting shift all over the world from sugary beverages to healthier alternatives, allowing for multiple touch points throughout the day. This superfood tonic is playing at the intersection of wellness and lifestyle or social refreshment, functional enough to be enjoyed after a workout, but also craveable enough to be consumed at a bar instead of or with alcohol. In an era of mass pandemics, health is on consumers' minds more than ever. Our superfood tonic has no added sugar, is low calories, and it's packed with a superior form of all natural plant-based protein, rich in powerful antioxidants and minerals. And as you can see, across the board, we outperform our competition in terms of functionality. Especially well-timed as we emerge from the pandemic and we seek a full revival. But sustainability and health alone do not sell. We focus on making our first product so craveable, so convenient, so Instagrammable that consumers would buy it even if it weren't functional or sustainable. And to do this, we've worked with the world's best. The best food scientists through collaborations with Wageningen University and DSM Delft in Planet Bio, where we have established our lab. The best flavorists, Givaudan, to get our beverage tasting undeniably delicious.
But let's now focus on the other core part of our business, our next generation purpose-driven brand. As a team of mission-driven millennials, we're perfectly positioned to create $1 billion brand from our story, a story that aligns perfectly with the new values around sustainability, diversity, wellness, and transparency that will increasingly drive purchasing decisions and success in the market. We've been witnessed firsthand the power of this authentic startup brand with the higher rates of repeat purchases and referrals. People don't just love the product itself, but more importantly, they are drawn to our founding story, our vision, and our mission. This also allowed us to build a community of health and lifestyle social media influencers who serve as demand catalysts. To lay out our solid foundation, we've also worked with one of the best branding firms to develop our visual identity and strategy, the award-winning Per Fisher. We just did a sleek redesign of McDonald's. And here is why we are the best people to do this. Cristina, Julia, and I connected during our MBA at INSEAD over 2 years ago, where we immersed ourselves in the food tech ecosystem funded by the school. We then went on to win the INSEAD Venture competition, beating out other 80+ teams. And we're very complementary in our background. Julia comes from Silicon Valley and helped launch and scale a venture-backed for-profit for good startup. Cristina is a chemical and industrial engineer with experience in large-scale decarbonization projects. And I spent my career managing my family business, including its patent and trademark strategy, and driving a successful corporate exit with a private equity firm. Ivana, our talented food scientist from Buckingham, has worked as a fermentation expert and has developed already ultra-delicious products for consumer brands. We've also built out an impressive advisory network with leading expertise across our value chain, including former C-suite at major global retailers like Tesco and Carrefour, and former head of R&D of San Pellegrino. Since we incorporated in early 2020, during a pandemic-impacted world, we've not only developed a significant IP on the ingredient extraction and product, including color stabilization, as Olaf was mentioning before, but we also industrialized the process to be able to produce the ingredient and the beverage, not just in a specialized pharma facility, but in any standard brewery. And we've begun to explore also a fully circular scalable system to upcycle CO2 waste streams to produce FUL, including receiving a grant from the Dutch government for this specific project. After extensive testing on positioning and taste with 500 plus consumers, we've already started selling through very small channels where we observed the formation of a strong community with significant repeat purchases rate. We raised pre-seed funding, including a venture capital called Shift Invest and other aligned business angels, as well as we also got granted several grants from the government, as I mentioned. Perhaps most notably, we've also received a rather intense interest from major retailers and the large FMCG companies. And we're even under NDA with 3 of the largest food and beverage companies in the world as we speak. We're now commercializing our superfood ingredient and beginning to scope other applications.
So we're now on the cusp of gearing up to launch the Superfood Tonic properly here in the Netherlands and in the UK markets, starting now and into the summer, to validate product market fit. And in this upcoming year, we will basically, continue our R&D activities, so optimizing our biorefinery, our carbon footprint, exploring new products for our superfood and the remaining side stream. And in mid-2022, so about a year from now, we'll plan to raise a priced seed round to allow us to take our learnings and scale. And we're aiming for the US. So we truly believe that now is the time to launch and grow solutions like FUL that not only meet the demand of a new generation of consumers, but a new era of corporate priorities and a new precedent really for climate positive innovations. So we want to cheers to a future full of opportunity, and we look forward to your questions.
Great,
and
thank you so much.
Just as a disclaimer, Cristina, we had started with full glasses.
Yeah, I already finished.
Tried to restrain ourselves from drinking.
Well, it definitely looks delicious, and I cannot wait till it makes it to the US. So thank you all so much. Love to switch over to questions. I'm sure there are a few for this product. Anyone want to jump in?
Hi, it's Tom Shields. Quick question: have you made innovations on the production side of this too? I guess I heard a lot about developing the taking microalgae and refining it and then building the beverage. But what about the actual growing and harvesting?
Yeah, so we have identified several suppliers across the world, but we are not having a normal supplier-client relationship. We are actually partnering with them because we have a very specific sustainable cultivation protocol. So we are very clear about the specifications that we want to obtain on the microalgae, and there is only a way to grow it in the way that gives us these specifications. And this counts for both the nutritional values, but also for the sustainability side. So we are very careful with the nutrient media and the seed culture that we use to grow the microalgae. And we have suppliers of our suppliers identified for certain things that only the microalgae that we source contain.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the biogenic?
Yeah, and one of the things that we are very focused on is the source of carbon. So microalgae to grow requires a source of carbon and sunlight, and of course a nutrient-dense media. And this source of carbon, in some cases, can be organic carbon like sugars or others, food waste, but it also can be inorganic carbon if you use, for example, a biogenic source of CO2 like carbon direct air capture CO2 or CO2 coming from fermentation processes or from industrial waste. So there are several things that we can do to make it as sustainable as possible. What we are basically doing is we are using direct air capture CO2 to feed our microalgae, and we are combining it also with growing other species using food waste and emissions from breweries.
Great. Anyone else have any questions?
I have a question, strange question. Regarding the color of the product, how consumers reacted to the color of the product. This is not a common color in the food space, in the food product space. This is more like in the synthetic type of products. So how consumers reacted to the color?
You know, they pull out their phones and they take an Instagram picture, which has been great for our marketing. But I think it's definitely intriguing, and we're seeing quite a bit of pull from kind of terraces and bars and more social settings than we had initially planned, because it is such sort of a social fun color. But I think, you know, people don't expect it to be natural, which is on us then to over communicate that. Not only is it natural, but the blue color is also coming from the phycocyanin and chlorophyll, which are both antioxidants. The phycocyanin has, you know, anti-inflammatory properties, etc. So that's part of our mission, and our work is to kind of now reassociate the color of blue and blue drinking with making you feel good and knowing that it's doing good for your body.